A lot of confirmations of our fears as we get into episode 9 of Remake Our Life. So my thoughts on the episode, so let's jump right into it. So as we jump into the episode, Kyoya is basically confirming exactly what we were thinking, that yeah, it's indeed a scenario where, yes, he's in 2018, he now has a child with Akishino, and he doesn't actually remember anything that has happened from the point that he seen Keiko up until this point. So kind of creates a problem in the idea that he doesn't really know, how they got together, where everybody's at, or what he's even doing for a job. So a lot of investigation happening, looking into what he's currently doing. You kind of find out that he's living in Noborito, and at the same time, he is a development manager for a company called Attract Point Game. And he does look into his contacts and finds that he has spoken to Kawasagawa since that particular time. It was about a month ago that she last talked to her. And as he calls her up, she's like, thank you. I was actually looking to talk to you. You remember that thing I told you about a month ago? Yeah, we're having troubles. Can you come over here early and help me out with it? And following this, we do get a little more of essentially Koya struggling with the fact that, one, he doesn't know anything, and two, he's now living with, a wife and a daughter now, and they're constantly looking at him like he's weird, but he eventually goes to work, and that's when we meet Miss Moe Magane. I'm sorry, her name is actually Morishiya Miki. And Miki is apparently the one that's kind of having the issue currently, and she is kind of assigned from Kawasagawa to see if Koya can help them with an issue. And he goes to meet Kawasagawa, and she's in the same company but a different department that's working on something different. And he goes with Miki to go to this artist's house because they're apparently behind schedule, and he uses his capabilities that he's kind of learned over time to help them get in there. Or normally this artist apparently is constantly ignoring Miki. He basically contacts her beforehand and lets her know that he's going to swing by there in about 30 minutes, and so that gives her time to get ready, get dressed, get makeup, everything. It's kind of giving her some time to be able to, clean herself up rather than just showing up at the last minute and throw her completely off. And as they meet with this artist, they come to find out that essentially she is struggling with, she's got a writer's block basically, but not really a writer's block. I wouldn't really call it that. Just more of a concept that she feels like she doesn't have anything left to draw, that she has gotten to a point where she's drawn everything that she wants to draw, and she doesn't have really anything else to really inspire her. And as they're talking, at some point, he ends up going over and seeing that she's been drawing something on her drawing tablet, and he's like, this is really beautiful. And she's like, yeah, you really like it? I'm going back to my roots, back to what originally inspired me. And I mean, I'm guessing most people can probably guess by now, this is really something where she was probably inspired by Akishino way back in the day, and she kind of went into the industry and started drawing what the industry wanted, but now she's going back to her roots. And we'll see this story paralleled with Akishino later. But at any rate, he says it's really great, and this kind of inspires her again. So she's like, okay, I'm sorry, I'll get back to work, I'll get this done. Let me get a schedule set up, and we'll get this going. As Koya gets back home, this is when we kind of find out that, yes, Akishino has in fact stopped doing art. As he kind of goes, hey, there's this thing coming up. Are you going to enter something for the competition? And Akishino's like, what are you talking about? I almost thought they were going to do something really crazy, like Akishino's like, I've never drawn before. What are you talking about, Kyoya? It's going further back. No, she's like, no, I gave up on that years ago. You know that. Following the next day, Kyoya is basically reprimanded by somebody in management or something that's upset because Miki isn't doing more than just setting up a schedule, that she should have been there, that she should be getting stuff done. And, Kawasagawa's like, I'm sorry that you're basically being blamed for something I had you help us with from a different department, which I thought the same thing, like, well, get your people together and work on it then. What are you looking at me for? But anyways, he invites her to lunch, and they get to lunch together. And this is where we have this moment where Koya is kind of finally piecing everything together. He's realizing that his actions back here has essentially rewrote everybody's future. Or as he puts it, he stole their dreams. He essentially is the only one in this entire group that is happy. He was unhappy before. He went back in time. He got involved with the Platinum Generation. And in the end, he's the only one happy. As we find out, Nanako gave up on singing. There's a stream that she basically says she lost her inspiration, which I'm assuming was probably because she got her heart broken by Kyoya. Kawasegawa is actually in a lower role in a department than she was in the previous life that when he was working with her. Akishino obviously has given up on drawing, and as he tries to look up Tsuruyuki's name, even his pen name, he can't find anything. He hasn't wrote anything since then. So again, he's the only one that's happy in the end. Everybody else has given up their original dreams. Now, they could still be happy, and we're not going to acknowledge that. I mean, Nanako could be doing a job that she actually enjoys more. Or, Akishino could be more happier being a mother. We're not addressing that. We're not addressing any of that other stuff. What their original dream was their happiness, and he stole it from them. Which is interesting, as we get this little brief moment where Kyoya he comes home and he's sad, and he's crying in front of his daughter and his wife, and he apologized to Akishino. And this is where we have this moment where the two of them sit down together, and we finally get a clear idea from Akishino's perspective of why she gave up on drawing. Now, again, my original theory was this concept of her falling in love with Kyoya and her choosing to be a wife and a mother over her art. But that really wasn't the case. It wasn't going to be that simple for us. They really want to drive home the idea that Kyoya ruined everything. So yes, in fact, when she gives this brief kind of idea of what happened, Tsuruyuki left. They continued to do projects. Kyoya kept pushing them to do new projects. They kept making games. And eventually, at some point, Akishino essentially lost her individuality as a creator. As it kind of points out, Kyoya remembers that point in which she was trying to insert her own style into the stuff, into the project, which I don't really get this part, because technically what Akishino was talking about in that particular scene that they show, Akishino was mentioning that this was a staple in Tsuruyuki's writing, that he liked the concept of the clenched fist. So she was wanting to do a keyframe where it shot from the character's lower right and that he would clench his fist. And that was something that Tsuruyuki put in his writing. And it was like almost like a staple that he has regularly in his writing. And she was acknowledging that. So I don't quite get why that scene particular is being shown when they're acknowledging the idea that she lost her individual creativity and that she was just going into the mold of the actual work. Which is funny because technically granted there is a style to a lot of things. And so individual artists will often lose their own original style because they have to fit the character designers and the original character designers and the concept the director wants, the concept that the writer wants. But in actuality, she's probably the one that could probably pull off the most of her own original artwork. But what they're basically trying to push here is that, yes, they continue making games, and Akishino herself lost her own original art because she was just fitting into the molds of what each of these games needed, and she couldn't really do her own thing. Her own artistry was being lost. And she even talks about the fact that, even when she would, pose an art to Kyoya, he would just, think it's good, and then she would put it out there and everybody just kind of accepted it was good. And so she kind of just went along with this into the point where she just felt isolated and lost her own creativity in the mix. And that's basically where we leave it. We've basically at this point established that the Platinum generation is gone. And the only person that's still in the industry whatsoever, according to what we're seeing, is Kawasegawa. She's the only one that's continued working, but even still, her work is, what she's doing is a way lower position than what she had before. So he even ruined that aspect. So overall, decent episode. I really did like getting this insight into what he's kind of destroyed. It still does beg the question of what we're going to go back to. I was kind of hoping at the very end of this episode we would have gotten some sort of time leap. Either it be jump back to the point in which he realized he screwed everything up, or the point before they even started the game process. Something to give us an indication of where we're going next. That way I can actually theorize on something. So all my theories from the previous impressions still hold here. I really don't really see anything different from this point after seeing all this stuff. At the same time, I am kind of curious at this point, because they didn't show us the jump back, that they might do something different. And this is kind of a theory that I started getting in my head when he started watching Nanako's video, is I'm wondering, like, would it be interesting to have it kind of shift to where, and this would be getting more into the, harem-esque type of aspects of the series that aren't really too strong in my opinion, but to have, like, episode 10 be where he jumps to a future where he's with Nanako, and then it jumps to a future where he's with Kawasagawa. But I don't think, the way that they kind of lay this one out, I don't think that's really the case, because how it really feels everything played out based on what Akishino is saying, he kept with that mold. And that mold is what really pushed everybody away. And nothing really did shift in there. Nothing gave us an indication that there could be a shift there. So I think this is kind of the future that they want to show us. And it does make me wonder where we'll go from here. If it will be, a jump to back where he's in front of Keiko, or jump back before he actually started the project. Or before, again, him actually choosing to go to the school. Which I think we have too many episodes left. I think we have 3 more episodes left. So I don't think that jumping back to the very beginning and him not going with them is going to be enough content. I think it really is going to be a case where he goes back, pulls back Tsuruyuki, says we're going to make a new project that will be all about you guys. We'll have plenty of time to work on it. Because that's the thing. That's the sad thing about all of this, is that it doesn't really show us what he gets into after Tsuruyuki leaves. It just seems to indicate that he got headstrong on, this is how it's supposed to be, let's do it again, and kept making the same mistakes, which is kind of surprising, because this is that whole problem with a leap forward and no indication of the character being there. Is it similar to Tokyo Revengers, where it's this aspect of when they leap forward, it's almost as if some stupid drone is replaced by them that's making the same mistakes. If he was in front of Keiko sobbing about the fact that he screwed up everything, wouldn't his intention from that point on be to do the next game correctly, and the next game even more correctly? It seems like instead, what is kind of left behind is a self that didn't see Tsuruyuki walk away, didn't see where he made his mistakes. So it's kind of a troubling thing there. Yeah, I do have to give a shout out to Genghis Khan for pointing out the fact that, yeah, technically, Keiko is kind of hinted at early on as being something of a oddity to this world, because yes, way back when he was working with Kawasagawa in that kind of failed project, he did knock over some papers, and there was a magical girl on one of the papers, and yes, it did in fact look like Keiko. So I was better going off with my weird tangent ideas that, because she was in the OP looking all sinister and distant, that she was an oddity in the story. But yeah, that picture of a magical girl that looks like Keiko is pretty darn obvious, and I don't know why I've forgotten about that. I guess because they made such a nice gap between the point that it showed that and the point that she actually showed up in the show, which I think was like episode 4 or 5. But interesting nonetheless. But yeah, that's my thoughts on episode 9 of Remake Our Life. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, leave a like down below, comment, let me know what you thought of the episode, subscribe if you haven't already, share this video if you can, support us on Patreon if you have a couple bucks, and y'all take care.